Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this very special day. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. My name is Jose Parr, and I'm a librarian with the LA County Library. I want to welcome you all to today's event, Juneteenth Stories and Reflections. Just as a reminder, all cameras and mics will be disabled for the duration of the event. But that doesn't mean that this is not an interactive event. If you have any questions or comments for the presenter today, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll be sure to get it to them either during the event or in a Q&A right at the end. So now I'd like to introduce today's host, the librarian for the Black Resource Center, Ms. Rose Mitchell. Rose, over to you.
Happy Juneteenth, everyone, and welcome to our 2021 Juneteenth event. This year, the visibility of Juneteenth is like no other. Throughout history, Juneteenth has been known by many names: Jubilee Day, Freedom Day, Liberation Day, Emancipation Day, and today, a national holiday. Those were the words of Vice President Kamala Harris on Thursday, June 17th, before President Biden signed the law making Juneteenth a federal national holiday. So what does this mean to finally have Juneteenth be declared a national holiday? It may mean many things to many people, but it's truly a profound acknowledgement of our history in this country. Many of you may know that Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration to commemorate the end of slavery in the United States. However, most Americans, including many African Americans, were not familiar with Juneteenth until it received national media attention in 2020. That was following the tragic death of George Floyd and the ensuing nationwide social justice movement. And all of that prompted more awareness about Black and African American experiences and history. Some of you may also know that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed on January 1st, 1863. Many African Americans were still held in bondage at that time. It was not until Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas on June 19th, 1865, that the last enslaved African Americans were declared free by General Order Number 3. We have put in the chat the text from General Order Number 3 so that you can see or read exactly what it says. We have also included in the text additional links. One is the historical legacy of Juneteenth from the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Juneteenth celebrations may have begun in Texas, but they soon spread to neighboring states and throughout the nation. It even became a state holiday in Texas in 1979 and was observed as an official observance in many other states, but not a state holiday. The Texas State Historical Association website, which is also in the chat, provides more information about the history of Juneteenth in Texas. In the beginning, celebrations could range from parades to prayer services and political rallies to festive barbecue events complete with red soda water. If you look online, you will see an abundance of Juneteenth recipes. The one we selected is also in the chat, and it includes 68 recipes from Black creators to celebrate Juneteenth. So please check that out. We have been celebrating at A.C. Bilbrook Library and the Black Research Center for more than 15 years. And those celebrations included our storyteller, Binnie Tate Wilkin, art activities, and an opportunity to reflect on and learn about the of Juneteenth and to celebrate the lives and sacrifices of our ancestors. We are joined today for a celebration of freedom with storyteller, educator, writer, and consultant, Binnie Tate Wilkin. In her advanced years, these are her words, not mine, she continues to teach storytelling for University of Nevada, Las Vegas Office of Lifelong Learning, and presents storytelling programs and workshops. As a roster member of the Nevada Arts Council in the past few years, she has presented workshops for teachers and senior centers on culture sharing, and this is done through storytelling. For more than 15 years, as I mentioned before, she was recruited to present Los Angeles County Library's Juneteenth storytelling program. Back in the day, she was also known as the Minority Service Coordinator for Los Angeles County Public Library. And she taught storytelling at various universities, including UCLA. Binnie is author of numerous professional articles and books, including an instructive book on storytelling. The title of this book, A Life in Storytelling. In July, next month, Ms. Wilkin will be presented the Western Region Oracle Award for Excellence in Storytelling by the National Storytelling Network. That is a tremendous honor, and we congratulate you, Binnie, for this award. Today, in celebration of Freedom Day, the program will consist of all original stories and poetry by Binnie. So let's welcome Binnie Tate Wilkin. Thank you, Binnie.
Thank you, Rose. Hello, everyone. Happy Juneteenth Day. Happy Freedom Day. The world is learning about Juneteenth like they've never learned before, since Juneteenth has been declared a national holiday. Just this morning, I got an email from a friend telling me about an article in the National Geographic, which reveals that in a little town in Mexico, they have celebrated Juneteenth, Dia de los Negros, for 150 years. Another little bit of African American history that's been lost, stolen, and strayed. And there's much more that the nation will learn if they are willing. We want to begin our program with a piece I wrote titled Lamentations and Exhortations, Sorrow and Challenge of African American Spirituals. The poem takes us on a trip through the lives and history of African Americans in the United States. It reminds us of the hard times on a day when we celebrate. It doesn't hurt us to remember those times when things were not so good. So sit back and take this little trip with me. Here it is, lamentations and exhortations. Torturous chains on dark skins tore, human cargo by thousands lay in store. Stowage, packed, sickened by stench and stale air, goaded by stick and whip, on deck for repair. Weakened bodies, pulled from fetid spaces, told to exercise, shuffle, dance, or pace. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. Nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows my sorrow. Thundering drums of Africa cried out where they stood, pounding, stomping feet on planks of wood. Ships, forever stained by blood and grief, bound captives, jumped to final relief. Igbo landing marks the deep where some chose to die. Enslavement rejected, drowning the only way to fly. Now give me two wings to veil my face. Give me two wings to hide my feet. Give me two wings so I can fly where the world won't do me no harm. Hands raw, bodies weary, forced to work the land, families torn apart, sold as property in hand. Determined to survive in hope for a better day, helped by kin already free, few stole away. Persons of conscience formed an underground rail for captives, rivers, and stars, the runaway trail. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, I want to cross over into campground. When the sun goes down in the western sky, watch that star see outrun. Barns and attics, active railroad stations, hundreds vanished from plantations. Captors showed no remorse. Dogs and hunters sought their prey. Return of property signs placed on display. The hunted were undaunted. Freedom was the goal. Conductors ticketed many trips, and death took its toll. Get on board, little children, get on board. There's room for many a more. This train is bound for glory. This train, carrying only the righteous and the holy. This train. After years of toil and warfare, chattel were released. No money, no land. Plight of poverty increased. Partially untethered, some traveled north to be free. In sway stood strength, and resiliency. The chains were cut, sharecropping substituted slavery, white supremacy posed as manifest destiny. I've been viewed and I've been scorned. I've been talked about, sure as you're born. Didn't my Lord deliver Daniel? Why not every man? Jim Crow laws were declared, separation signed. Former captives never equal, always to walk behind. Perfected the language, saluted the nation's flag, built the South's economy, emancipated, but in rags. Rich planters dispossess power prolonged, taunted and chanted, go back where you belong. Just like a river planted by the water, we shall not be moved. I don't feel no ways tired. I've come too far from where I started from. Producing doctors, scientists, and inventors, Friedman followed every trend allowed to enter, fought foreign wars, revealing hero faces. Upon return, directed back to their places. The scorn survived. Under no illusion, the Republic of the Free feared African infusion. Went to the rock to hide my face. Rock cried out, no hiding place down here. Joshua hit the battle of Jericho, 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 and the walls came tumbling down. Confronting destitution, never giving up the fight, people of color sought justice with all their might. They worked, they sang, and never tired. Migrated from the South and still met with ire. Everywhere unwelcome and separated, they created Renaissance enclaves and celebrated a rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham. Oh, rock of my soul. Oh, what a beautiful city. Oh, what a beautiful city. 12 gates to the city. Hallelujah. Rebel families with small children in tow gathered to watch strange fruit shows, lynchings. Men jeered, humiliated, protesting for rights long awaited. Good people, all cultures and generations joined in resistance, challenging the nation. Oh, oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Laws passed Progress was made. Jim Crow hid, but kept its trade. Raised its vicious head with impunity. Mobs, the Klan, burned homes and community. Nonviolence met with wayward law, officers in legions. Stunned viewers watched in worldwide regions. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round. Walking down Freedom Way. Walk together, children. Don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting on the other side. Mourning descendants of those enslaved yearn for an America dreamed of and craved, where humans, recycled bits of stardust, hold reverence for life. Examples for the world, promoting peace, rejecting strife. Boots off the neck of freedom, breathing authoritatively. Democracy, the legacy. All in that company. There's peace. Like a river, there is peace. Like a river, there is peace. Like a river in my soul. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, and study war no more. That ends lamentations and exhortations. But I want to remind you, like Ella Baker did in her song, he who believes in freedom cannot rest. So don't rest, people. We have a long way still to go. When we're doing this program live, I have people do what I call a heritage handshake. People sitting next to each other shake hands and share the name of someone who has had an impact on their lives, who helped bring them to where they are today. And since we are virtual, I want you, wherever you are, if there's somewhere near, shake their hand and remember someone in your life who has contributed to your being who you are today. Most of the time, those are the people in our family and the people in our churches and in our communities. It's all right to celebrate athletes and stars, but the people who have done the most to help us are usually those people close to us. I will take a moment and offer a handshake for my dear brother Elwood James Streeter, who was a dentist in Los Angeles for more than 40 years. He died in December of natural causes. He was a rock in our family and a great influence on my life. I hope you are shouting out your names. Our next story in celebration of Juneteenth is called Legend of the Black-Eyed Peas. In this story, there was a man named Jim who had been saving up his money to buy his freedom, and the word came that all slaves were emancipated. Well, Jim took his jar of coins and set out on the roads of eastern North Carolina, trying to find a place to live and stay. He found a for sale sign in front of an old shack. And when he inquired, he found he had just enough money to buy that shack and the little plot of land that surrounded it. He cleaned it up, made it as livable as he could, cleaned up his land and started planting a garden, kept working until he had a space with a garden, some chicken coops, and he even got some help and dug himself a well. But he still didn't have a job. He had heard about old Thompson, who owned all the farmland nearby. He went to Thompson, and Thompson said, well, you can share crop like the others around here, and at the end of the year, you'll get your share. So Jim agreed, and he started working for old Thompson. He worked hard. He was strong. At the end of the year, Thompson knocked on his door, gave him this little pittance of money. Jim said, is that all? He said, yeah, well, you owe me for the feed, and you owe me for the seeds, and you remember that I bought this and I bought that. But here, I brought you this bag of black-eyed peas. And he pulled up a big bag, a toe sack, we called them in the South. We know now is a burlap bag filled with black-eyed peas. Jim took his little money in those black-eyed peas. He stored them in the cellar so he could can some of them. Well, this went on for some time. Every year, old Thompson would give Jim a little bit of money and a sack of black-eyed peas. His cellar was full of peas. Peas he had canned and some of them dry. Well, then came a drought. The worst drought they had had in eastern North Carolina for a long time. Everybody fell on hard times. But Jim had those black-eyed peas. He pulled them out. He pounded some of them into something like flour that he could make something like bread. He boiled them. He fed some to his chickens and to his animals. Jim stayed strong. Well, at the end of that drought, old Thompson came over to Jim and said, Jim, we still got time to raise some corn. So if you'll join me, we can raise enough corn that maybe we can make a little money this year. Jim agreed. He was still strong. He didn't mind working. Worked hard, and they did raise corn. And when harvest time came, they had raised quite a bit of corn. Old man Thompson came to Jim's door with a small load of corn and that little pittance that he usually gave. Told Jim, I'm going to get my corn and take it into market. Well, Jim took his wagon full and he went into market with it. And he was standing there talking to some of his friends, and he looked up and there was old Thompson coming down the road with this big pile of corn. There were two mules pulling that wagon, and they were weakened because they hadn't been treated well during the drought. Old Thompson was whipping them. Get up there, mules. Get up there. Jim stood there watching for a minute. Then he walked out there to that wagon and said, ain't no need of you whipping those mules to death. They're sick. He unhitched those mules, reached down, took up that hitch, pulled that wagon right up to the market himself. Old Thompson yelled, look at that fool. He's stronger than a mule. Jim turned to him and said, no, sir. I ain't nothing but a man. I ain't nothing but a man. Well, they tell me old Thompson died penniless. He never recovered from the drought. But Jim had saved up all those pennies Thompson had given him, and he bought himself a little piece of land and another bigger piece of land, and he became one of the few large landowners in eastern North Carolina. And the people heard about those black-eyed peas. And after that, every year, black families would celebrate the new year eating black-eyed peas. And they still do it today. That story is called The Legend of the Black-Eyed Peas. Now, I wrote that story because I couldn't find out why we had a tradition of eating black-eyed peas in the black community. I couldn't find any resource that explained it, except that I did find one reference to an African tribe in Africa which used black-eyed peas as the center of their harvest celebration, because to them, that little eye in the black-eyed peas represented the eye of God. Now, on to our next piece. This is a poem that I wrote, a few months ago, because the world is still struggling with this whole idea of race. We're trying to figure out what we tell our children. And I remembered my experience with race when I was a small child. The poem is somewhat fictionized, but the basis of it is true. It's called Black and White, a child's view of race and family. You can make of it what you will. Goes like this. One day, Mama going to work. Daddy dressed me up. Heard a knock on the door. Daddy run to open. White man enters. Hug my daddy. Daddy called to me. Daddy say, holding my hand, come here, child. Meet your great uncle. He's my papa's brother. Daddy smiled. They hug again. White man grabs me in his arms, kiss my cheek and hoist me high. Look me in the eye and say, you pretty like your grandma. Sad she didn't live to see. Daddy, no, I don't understand. Who is this white man? It puzzles me. Daddy sits next to him and talk about parents who died too soon. Daddy and brothers left alone. These two, sad. Then they happy. Then they sad again. Daddy pulled me close and say, let's go get ice cream. White man agreed. Daddy and great uncle both take my hand. I'm happy. We walk, they talk. I'm brown. Daddy tan. My great uncle, he white. But that's okay with me. At the store, we all three order chocolate ice cream. That poem is called Black and White, a child's view of race. Now, I want to take a moment here and call on Jose and see if there are any comments or questions in the chat. And if there are, we'll take a moment and look at them and see if there's something that either Rose or I can answer. Jose, is there anything in the chat?
You're getting a lot of love for the Black Eye P poem. It was a beautiful poem. A lot of comments on the imagery of the Black Eye P being the eye of God. It was a beautiful thought. Many people commented on that. We do have one question. Maybe Rose could or you, Binnie, could address it. What can we do to ensure that Juneteenth, the holiday, stays as a remembrance of the end of slavery, and not just necessarily another day off that we have as we see some of these other holidays? What can we do as a community to ensure to remember the purpose of Juneteenth?
I think that we do what we did today. We have these celebrations where we tell our stories. And we don't only tell our stories in programs like this. Please, people, tell your stories to your children. Help them to understand the long road that we have traveled. They don't have to be sorrow stories. Tell adventures from your own lives and relationships that have been part of your life that made you happy. Also tell them some of those that made you sad, because children have to learn that life is both joy and sadness. Were there any others?
Rose, do you have anything to add?
No, that was perfect. I think that is absolutely what we need to do. And we will continue promoting, educating people in our libraries about this particular holiday and other African American history.
Okay, our time is moving along and there may be some more questions. Please put them in the chat if you would like us to answer them at the end of this session. But we will now do our last two poems for this session. The first one is called Yard Broom Mama. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience from my hometown, but this is about a real woman in my childhood. And in recent years, I started dreaming about her. And so I sat down and wrote a poem. A lot of the poem is fiction, but this woman was real. And I share this poem because I want to remind us also that Juneteenth is a time to celebrate the elders. We often forget the elders, like myself. We enjoy visits from the young, and sometimes talking to your elders, you might learn something, or they might bring something beautiful to your life. This poem, Yard Broom Mama. Yard brooms, yard brooms. Children hide behind mama's skirt, under beds in their rooms, scared of that woman in her wagon, come to sell her homemade brooms. Skins the color of raw peanuts, cheeks and lips red and bright, frizzled yellow-brown hair under a hat glows at dawn of morning sunlight. Bluish-gray eyes seem to smile as she calls for all to hear. Yard brooms for sale. The crowds gather and draw near. People in the river bottoms know Yard Broom Mama well, comes ever so often from the woods with her homemade wares to sell. Her brooms, tied with spiral knots, clean better than a rake. And for just one extra dime, dirt paintings she will make. First, Mama waters down the ground. With the broom, she starts drawing ancient lines, swirls, and circles. Soon, each yard is a work of art. Pouring on bottle colors made from plants and clay, the paints, her own creation, add luster to each display. People are proud of their yards. Beauty design won't last, but museum art can't surpass these echoes from the past. Finished, Mama stands back smiling, admires fulfillment of her calling, packs up her brooms, promising, be back when the leaves are falling, rides her wagon to her shack, deep in the forest mystery. Say she crazy to live there all alone. Nobody knows her life history. Folks walk the neighborhood, admire paintings from ancient times. They sing a song about the woman who shares beauty for just one dime. Yard brooms, yard brooms. Yard broom mama makes patterns in the sand, using nothing but a broom in her hand. Stands tall when all her work is done. She knows beauty, like life, will soon be gone. Yard brooms, yard brooms for sale. Our last poem I also wrote a few months ago. And this poem points out the work we still have to do to give our children the sense of how beautiful they are and how wonderful they are. The world has not given us the language to do that, so we have to make it up ourselves. This poem, our last poem, Sepia People. Here we are with a group of people, those few identified as people of color. Language of exclusion floats on the air of intended commonality. Rosy cheeks, blush, translucent skin, long manes of hair blowing in the wind. We, sepia people, retreat into inner selves, souls shake dancing with anger. Knowing our compatriots live in whiteness, pink translucence, revealing emotional changes, must we accept the power of description, which by exclusion invalidates our existence? The generic Black representing all sepia people? Not mentioned are skins of almond, light tan, infused with yellows of sunflower and maize. Sepia people, skin revealing warm brown tints, darkness rebelling against the sun, colors kin to ginger and ripe sweet berries on the vine, chocolate, cafe au lait, mahogany burnished with red and gold, sleek ebony, beautiful density of color, demanding touch. We will not allow white to paint us invisible. The quiet of momentary anger is temporary. Flaunting our authentic selves, we will attend meetings, sing, and shout. We are here. Tumbling that powerful wall of language, revealing durable threads in life's fabric of beauty and love. Voices and images of sepia people. Now, when we are live, I invented, Rose knows this, what I call our ending stomp dance. The word is that when they first announced freedom in the slave quarters, an old lady like me stood up and shouted, "Hey, children, we're gonna stomp down freedom today." And when we celebrate live, we do our stomp dance. We aren't live today, but you can stomp your feet. The song goes like this: stomp it down, stomp it down. Gonna stomp down freedom today. Everybody, are you stomping your feet? Stomp it down, stomp it down. Gonna stomp down freedom today. Happy Juneteenth, everyone. Now we will return to Jose and see if there are any comments and questions to be shared. And I want to thank everyone who attended. And please join us again next year for our Juneteenth celebration.
Yes,
Jose?
yes. Thank you so much. Hopefully next year we'll be able to be live and in person at the AC Bilbro Library. We did have a few questions come through. One was, who should celebrate Juneteenth? Should it be something that's commemorated just by the Black community, or can people like myself who are not African American, who are not Black, how can we celebrate and honor this day?
Well, I think Everybody should celebrate history. And it's time for us to stop separating history. We separate Mexican history from American history. We celebrate Black history from American history. It's time for us to learn that this is American history. And when we celebrate Juneteenth, it's reminding us all of the cruelty that we are capable of inflicting on each other, not just whites on blacks, but on other cultures and each other. So yes, Juneteenth is a celebration for everyone. But I must remind people that you can't do what has been done in the past. If a holiday belongs to a given culture, you don't walk in and take it over. You join it, but you don't take it over. Let those people lead it. And as long as you are acknowledging that the sufferers in this particular circumstances were African American slaves, and you let the descendants of those slaves lead the celebration, anyone can celebrate it, is the way I look at it. Is there another question? Or does
Is there
Rose
any?
want to respond? Rose, did you want to respond?
Oh, yes. And I want to remind everyone, all of those years that we have been celebrating Juneteenth at AC Bill Brew and the Black Resource Center, those are cross-cultural events. So people in our community are various cultures, and we invite everyone in to join these events and learn about each other's history. And that's so important. When we know about each other's history, then we can create a more equitable world. So I invite all of you to continue embracing other cultures as well and teaching other cultures about ourselves and each other.
Was there, we have a few more minutes according to my time, Jose. Was there anything else?
Yeah, there's a question that came in asking about any authors that you recommend that we should read up on.
Well, if you go to, is this just in reference to Juneteenth authors?
No, it was addressed to both. Just how can we educate ourselves was the question. So who can we read to both the history and even and poetry? Good, because poems I feel have a real powerful way to convey emotion and history. So both historical books, authors, and poetry that we might read to better our understanding.
There are so many. I invite you to log on to Los Angeles County Library website, and we have created book lists on Juneteenth, on anti-racism, and we also have other ethnic resource centers. We have the Asian Pacific Resource Center, the American Indian Resource Center, and we have the Chicano Resource Center. And there are book lists for all of those other resource centers. And it gives you a broad knowledge of different ethnic groups and of the African American experience as well. So please log on to our LA County Library website. It's lacountylibrary.org, and you will see so many resources to educate yourselves and entertain yourselves as well.
I just dropped the link in the chat directly to the Juneteenth page that has all the references that you just mentioned.
And I would also like to suggest that when you find materials that you're interested in reading, you'll find that some libraries have been reticent in including books about African American history and culture. And if they don't have them, demand that they get them.
Yes, we at least here at Alley County Library, we do listen to our customers. If you feel that our collection is lacking in something, let us know. We want to reflect the needs of the community and ensure that we're getting you the both the information and the entertainment that you want. We are as strong as you make us, so please let us know where we're lacking. And
Time for one more.
sure, just a lot of thank yous, a lot of love for both of you. And someone just asked, how was this experience for you, Binnie? You know, doing this virtually. You're so used to being at the AC Billboard Library. How did this differ from other celebrations that you've had?
Oh, I really love people, and so it's distressing for me not to be able to see faces and to touch people. But I'm also happy that we have this resource available to us. And it's a joy for me to be here and to share with everyone. Storytelling is my forte, and I really love doing it. And so any chance to tell stories is great for me. And I really want to thank everyone who chose to join us. But it is different. And so next time, join us and do the stomp dance live.
Well, I'll say one of the benefits of this is that it opens it up to so many people. Someone dropped in the chat that they're joining us from Louisiana. So, you know, hopefully next year we'll be in person at the AC Billboard Library and also streaming it for all those who can't join us. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for this amazing celebration. One that we've been doing for 15 years and one that is now a national holiday, and it's important. And I want to thank everybody for joining us and giving us a moment of your Saturday. Go out there and celebrate. Go out there and remember. And Binnie, I'll leave the last word to you.
All I want to say is happy Juneteenth, happy Freedom Day, and the working of freedom is hard and we have to continue.
Yes, happy Juneteenth, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And I want to remind you, you can see Binnie on YouTube. She's telling a story, The People Could Fly by Virginia Hamilton. And there's also another video from the Las Vegas Neon Museum where she's educating people about who Josephine Baker is. So I believe I put those links in the chat. So please continue to educate yourselves and continue to use the library as one of the greatest resources to do that. Thank you, everyone, and continue to celebrate Juneteenth throughout the weekend and enjoy. Thank you.